Where are those happy days?
His name's Bond. James Bond.
You've been lied to about this man your entire life. Not about whether he's a good actor, about who he actually is. Everyone who's ever sat through those 4 Bond films walked out thinking the exact same thing. That guy was born smooth. The tux just fits. He never had a hard day. That's just him. Every single part of that is wrong. The cool you think he was born with, he built it, by hand, starting as an abandoned Irish kid who taught himself to breathe fire in a circus for tourist coins, years before anyone handed him a script. And the part that's going to keep you right here, he spent the back half of his career deliberately trying to blow that image apart on camera so you'd finally see what was hiding underneath it, and almost nobody caught him doing it. So let's talk about the 3 deceptions of Pierce Brosnan. The mask he built, the image he turned against itself, and the cruelest one of all, the one life played on him while he stood there in the tuxedo, looking like the luckiest man alive. Start where the mask gets made. Navan, County Meath, 1953. A little boy whose father walks out while he's still in nappies. He's 4 when his mother makes the hardest, bravest call she can. Leave him with his grandparents and go to London to train as a nurse, because there's no money and no future where they are. She comes home once, maybe twice a year, then his grandparents die. So the kid gets passed around, an aunt, an uncle, eventually a boarding house run by a woman named Eileen. Brosnan said it himself, plainly, his childhood was a lonely thing. He never knew his father. Being Irish, Catholic, and effectively abandoned in 1950s Ireland was a particular kind of shame that landed mostly on his mum and partly on him. Then at 11 he gets shipped to London to live with his mother and her new husband. Now he's the Irish boy in a school of 2,000 English kids who can't be bothered to learn his name. So they just call him Irish. That's it. That's his name for a year. And here's the detail that unlocks his entire career. The thing he said years later about surviving that schoolyard. You learn to move fast. You learn to act tough, even when you've got no idea how to be tough. And above all, you learn humor. You learn to deflect with a joke, so you never actually have to throw a punch. Sit with that for a second. A frightened immigrant kid teaching himself to perform confidence he doesn't feel, so the bigger boys leave him alone. That's the origin story of James Bond. Not Ian Fleming's, Brosnan's. The unbothered cool you'd later pay $12 to watch got field tested in a Putney schoolyard by a scared 10-year-old who'd figured out that if you smile the right way, nobody sees you bleed. And the stepfather, the one piece of luck in all of this, takes the boy to the cinema for the first time in his life. The film is Goldfinger, 11 years old, and the first images Pierce Brosnan ever sees on a big screen are Sean Connery being the most effortless man alive. You want a loop that closes on itself? Hold that thought. We're nowhere near done with it. He leaves school at 16 wanting to be a painter, of all things, enrolls in art school, and one afternoon he wanders into a workshop where someone's teaching people to eat fire. Now, the polished version of this story is that young Pierce was drawn to some ancient craft. The version Brosnan actually told The Guardian is funnier and about 100 times more honest. He clocked that the group had women in it. The women had their tops off, so he joined. That's the man under the tuxedo, not some monk of the dramatic arts. A broke teenager who followed the most interesting room in the building and stumbled straight into his life. And here's what happened next. He got good at it. A circus agent spotted him breathing fire on the street for tourist coins and hired him for 3 years. Just hold that as a job description for the future face of British sophistication. He was a literal sideshow act. A kid who put a flame in his mouth and held a crowd, who learned exactly how long to make people wait and exactly when to give them the payoff. He was studying audiences before he ever touched a script. Then the drama center takes him for 3 years of proper training, and he comes out the other side and says the thing that ties the whole childhood into one knot, that when acting found him, it felt like a liberation, a door out of the life he'd been handed and into one he got to invent. So by the time the cameras actually find him, Brosnan had already pulled off the hardest acting job of his life. He'd spent 20 years playing a confident man. The tux was just a wardrobe change. The woman who'd turned that survival trick into a destiny is standing right here on this boat. Her name's Cassandra Harris, Australian actress, Luminous. In 1981, she's playing a Bond girl in For Your Eyes Only, and she's also Brosnan's wife. They'd married the year before, he'd adopt her 2 kids, and they'd have a son of their own. And from the second she gets cast in a Bond picture, she starts saying the same thing to him on a loop. You should be Bond. He thinks she's joking. He doesn't even want it. By his own account, Bond was never the dream. But on set, she introduces him to the producer, Albert Broccoli, who takes one look at this Irish fire eater in a sharp jacket and quietly files the face away. And driving Cassandra home from the studio, Brosnan starts doing the bit in the car. Bond, James Bond, just to make her laugh. It's a joke between a husband and a wife. Remember that. It's about to stop being funny. First, it makes him a star. He gets cast as the lead on an American TV show, playing a suave, champagne and cocktails con man, and the press immediately starts up. This guy could be the next Bond. Which is almost funny, because Brosnan told the Washington Post in 1985 that he was nothing like the character. The character was a swaggering extrovert, he said. He himself wasn't that at all. The mask was working so perfectly that the world had completely stopped seeing the man wearing it. By 1985, the deception was already total. Now here's where everyone who thinks they know the Brosnan story thinks they know the tragedy. 1986, Roger Moore's done, the role's open. Steele gets cancelled, which means Brosnan's suddenly free. Broccoli offers him James Bond. He says yes, signs the contract, does the wardrobe fittings, shoots the publicity stills, including that iconic gun beside the face pose. As far as everyone in that room is concerned, it's done. Pierce Brosnan is the new 007. Then a clause in his old TV contract goes off like a landmine. NBC had a 60-day window to uncancel the show, and all that Bond publicity had made Steele fascinating again overnight. Summer reruns spiked, so the network flipped its decision to cash in. Broccoli refused to share his spy with a weekly television show and dropped the line that became Hollywood legend: James Bond will not be Remington Steele, and Remington Steele will not be James Bond. And just like that, it was gone. Brosnan's told this part himself. He and Cassandra had a bottle of Cristal chilling to toast the new life. The phone rang. His agent said it'd fallen through. A castmate from those days described him afterward as not angry, just heartbroken. The role went to Timothy Dalton. And NBC, having blown the whole thing up, made a measly 6 episodes of Steele and killed it for good anyway. He lost Bond for nothing. And if you think that's the tragedy of this story, you've been set up exactly the way I was. Because in 1987, the very next year, Cassandra is diagnosed with ovarian cancer. The wife who dreamed the whole thing up. The woman who introduced him to Broccoli, who planted the idea, who he did the bit for in the car. She fights it for 4 years. And on the 28th of December 1991, one single day after their 11th wedding anniversary, she dies in his arms. Brosnan doesn't become James Bond in 1991 or 1992. The next Bond film gets stuck in a legal swamp and quietly canceled. Dalton eventually walks away from the role, and the whole franchise sits empty for years. The call finally comes.
But this is a Bond for the 90s.
He's announced as the 5th James Bond on the 7th of June, 1994, almost 3 years after Cassandra died. Sit with the full shape of that, the most enviable role in cinema, the fantasy of a billion people, the thing that meant he'd made it past all argument, showed up 3 years too late to share with the one person who ever wanted it for him. When he finally pulled that tuxedo on in GoldenEye, the smoothest, most desired man on the planet, he was a widower walking onto a soundstage to live out a dead woman's dream alone. And here's the thing about that smile we opened on. He'd had 30 years of practice hiding pain behind it. Nobody in that theater had the faintest idea. That's the third deception, and it's the one he never asked for. He's a phenomenal Bond. GoldenEye pulls $350 million. He does it 4 times, and the world, right on cue, slams the cage door. Smooth, that's Brosnan. Tuxedo, eyebrow, martini, that's the whole man. The same misreading the schoolyard started, the one where everyone mistakes the mask for the face, hardens into a life sentence. Most actors at this point would coast, take the money, play the type, retire rich and quietly underrated. Brosnan does the opposite. While he's still holding the Bond contract, he starts committing sabotage against his own image.
Welcome to Panama.
Thank you, Ambassador.
The first bomb goes off in 2001, slotted right between two of his own Bond films. Director John Borman, novelist John le Carré, a character named Andy Osnard. On paper, it sounds like a joke setup. A womanizing British intelligence agent in an exotic country. Real stretch. Except Osnard isn't Bond. Osnard is the rot under Bond. He's a corrupt, broke, sleazy spook exiled to Panama for sleeping with the wrong man's wife, who blackmails an innocent tailor and invents an entire fake war to line his own pockets. Brosnan plays him with the exact laddish charm of 007, completely poisoned. The same grin that sold you a hero is now quietly selling you a predator. He even introduces the character the same way. Osnard, Andy Osnard, same cadence, daring you to spot the difference. Critics called it possibly the best anti-Bond performance any Bond actor's ever given. And then there's the detail buried underneath that most people missed. In the original cut, Osnard gets shot and dies at the end, paying for everything. The filmmakers reshot it. The slimy bastard escapes with a briefcase full of money and gets clean away, no punishment at all. They made him so watchable they couldn't bring themselves to punish him. He'd taken the most beloved fantasy in spy cinema, flipped it inside out, in public, while literally still being James Bond. If that's not an actor screaming, "I am not the costume," I don't know what is. Then in 2004, the studio does to him exactly what NBC did 18 years before. They drop him. He learns he's done as Bond, says publicly that as far as he's concerned it's absolutely over, that he considers himself fired. The cage door he'd been quietly rattling for years just falls clean off the hinges. And where a normal man might have been crushed twice by the same role, Brosnan looked at the wreckage of his image and saw a wrecking ball he could finally swing as hard as he wanted. So he goes hunting for the most repulsive script in town, and he bankrolls it himself. A writer named Richard Shepard had written The Matador, never expecting a soul to touch it. He said he built the most disgusting character he could imagine on purpose, figuring Hollywood would never come near it, planning to shoot it cheap on digital video. The character is Julian Noble, a washed-up, falling-apart hitman, drowning in booze and one-night stands and panic attacks. A man who's lost his nerve and his soul somewhere across 20 years of killing strangers for money. Pierce Brosnan, fresh out of the tuxedo, read that and said yes, then put his own money behind it through his production company so the thing would actually exist. And then he let them gut the image down to the bone. Greasy mustache, pot belly on a thin frame, awful haircut, too tight, garish clothes. There's a scene where this man, James Bond, strides through a hotel lobby in nothing but black underwear and cowboy boots, gut out, completely deadpan serious. That's not an accident. That's a sitting Bond voluntarily doing that on a cinema screen. The single most aggressive demolition of a personal image I've ever watched an actor commit on purpose. And then the scene that makes it click. Julian Noble gets into a petty insult fight with a 12-year-old on a park bench and loses, and it visibly eats him alive. Because here's what Brosnan understood. Julian Noble is everything Bond pretends he's too cool to be. Lonely, desperate, needy, terrified. A man coming apart who can no longer perform the confidence the job demands. Which, if you've been with me this whole time, is the exact mirror image of the playground kid who learned to perform confidence to survive. He was playing the version of himself who'd lost the trick. Roger Ebert called it the finest performance of Brosnan's career. He got a Golden Globe nomination and lost it to Joaquin Phoenix for Walk the Line. The film barely scraped $12 million. Most people never saw it. Anyone who did walk in expecting Bond walked out having watched a man dismantle Bond in front of them with a gut, a mustache, and the bravest comic timing of his career. The deception finally confessed on screen. The charm was always a switch. Watch me turn it off. Here's where the story stops being about acting at all. In 2013, Pierce Brosnan's daughter Charlotte, the little girl he adopted and raised as his own, dies. Ovarian cancer. The exact same disease that took her mother Cassandra in his arms in 1991. The exact same disease that had already taken Cassandra's own mother before that. 3 generations of the same family, the same disease, moving in a straight line. Charlotte was 41 years old, surrounded by her husband, her children, her brothers. The same wretched thing reached into the same family and took a second person he loved. Put that next to everything we just watched. Through the GoldenEye premieres, through the red carpets, through every interview where some reporter asked him about martinis and gadgets, this is the man behind the smile. A boy abandoned before he was 5, who taught himself to perform calm so the world would never see the fear. A husband who buried his wife and then spent 3 years putting on the tuxedo she'd dreamed up for him, knowing she'd never get to see him wear it. A father who'd later lose his daughter to the same disease that took his wife. And his whole job, the thing he got paid millions to do, was to walk into a room and make you believe he didn't have a single care in the world. That's all 3 deceptions at once. The mask he built as a frightened kid. The image he spent a decade tearing apart so you'd finally see the actor underneath. And the grief he carried the entire time behind the most reassuring smile in movies. We looked at Pierce Brosnan and decided, there's a man everything came easy to. It might be the single most wrong thing audiences have ever agreed on about a movie star. Because the smile was never the truth. The smile was the performance, and it was the best one he ever gave. Come down to the comments and tell me which of the 3 deceptions hit you the hardest. The mask he built as a kid, the image he spent years destroying, or the grief he carried behind that smile the whole time. I read every single one of these. And if this is the kind of story you didn't know you needed, subscribe.